He said, I came here to sit down. I ain't gonna do nothing. I know exactly how you feel. You go to church, they want you to sing, they want you to play. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. You may be seated. Amen. So, it's been a while since I've been behind the podium, y'all. Bear with me. Give God the praise and the glory and the honor.
Yes.
My church family is here, Raising Up Nations. Those of you that came out, thank you so much.
Hallelujah.
The leadership of the great Archbishop C.W. Maddox, Mother Maddox, God bless you.
Yes.
Father Pastor Bishop Hope, thank you for coming out. My mother-in-law. Everybody else, thank you all so much.
Amen.
I'm not going to be before you long. If you will go to, with me, 2 Kings 5. I'm going to read verses 1 through 14. 2 Kings 5.
2 Kings 5.
And of course, my lovely wife in her absence. Once again, we are battling this little thing that's going on, but nevertheless.
Amen.
Nevertheless. Amen. Starting at verse 1, I'm reading New King James Version. It says, Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory in Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor. But, somebody say but. But a leper. Go down to verse 14 for me. Verse 14 says, So he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean.
Yes.
Let's say amen for the word.
Amen. Amen.
I was going to wait when the Lord gave me this word. It was probably 3-4 months ago. And I said, God, how you want me to do this thing? Because it's been burning in me for so long, and I didn't know how to present it. It wasn't until Sunday when the Lord gave me the word. And I'm going to come from you from this title, I Must Go Down for My Healing.
Amen. Preach.
Now, if we can examine verse 1, once again, now Naaman was the commander of the army of the king of Syria. And it says he was a great man of valor. The word valor was the one who has great courage in the face of danger, especially in battle. But you see there it says, but a leper.
Yeah.
Now if you want to examine the word but in this sentence is used as a conjunction.
Yeah.
Conjunction is used to introduce something contrasting with what had already been mentioned. It's used to indicate the impossibility of anything other than what was being stated. He was a great man. He was a courageous man. He was a strong-minded man, but a leper.
All right.
Anybody know what a leper is?
Yes.
See, leprosy is a contagious disease that affects the skin,
Yes.
the mucous membrane, and the nervous system, and it causes discolorization and lumps on the skin. And in severe cases, the disfigurement, it can cause paralysis and also deformities. So this guy, this great man of valor, had this issue that could deform him, that could make him disfigured, that could paralyze him.
Wow.
See, in the Bible, the word leprosy is mentioned upwards around 40 times, depending on the version you use. And leprosy was common in the Bible times. And many references to it were all understood to those who live in unsanitary conditions. Now, the main reason why leprosy is talked about so much in the Bible is that it is a graphic illustration of sin's destructive power.
Yeah.
In ancient Israel, leprosy was a powerful object lesson of the debilitating influence of sin in a person's life. So God had given the Israelites very specific instructions concerning leprosy. You can find it in Leviticus 13. Anyone suspected of having this disease had to go to a priest for examination. So if you thought you had leprosy, you had to go before the priest, and the priest had to examine you to see if you had it. Now, if found to be infected, the leprous person who had the disease were to tear their clothes and let their hair hang loose, and he shall cover his lip and cry out, unclean, unclean. He shall remain unclean as long as he had the disease. He is unclean, he shall live alone, his dwelling shall be outside the camp, and the leper was considered utterly unclean, physically and spiritually. So what am I talking about? You have this great person in the church that can play the keyboard really well, that can play the sax really well, that can sing really well, but You got this issue going on inward.
Wow.
Isn't that something? Can you imagine nowadays if we go around, unclean, I lie too much. Unclean, I talk to people too much. I gossip too much. Unclean.
Yes.
But can we go further? Leprosy was considered an incurable disease. Many believe that God inflicted the cause or the curse of leprosy upon people for the sins they committed, or the sins of their father. In fact, those with leprosy were so despised and hated that they were not allowed to live in any community with their own people.
Wow.
So these people became ostracized. They had to live by themselves. They had this issue that was presented to them. Their skin is being affected. Their limbs are locking up on them, and now they have to be outcasts. They can't live with their own family. They can't live with their own kind. So among the 61 defilements of ancient Jewish laws, leprosy was second only to a dead body. So it was a dead body, which is number one thing that was like, oh no. And then it was leprosy. Yeah. Now, a leper wasn't allowed to come within 6 feet of any other human, including his own family. But the disease was considered so revolting that a leper wasn't permitted to come within 150 feet of anyone when the wind was blowing.
Wow.
That's how bad this thing was.
Wow.
So this mighty man of valor who found favor in the king's sight, who won many battles, who had so many victories.
Yes.
But
Wow.
he was a leper. Let's go to verse 2. Verse 2, and the Syrians had gone out on a raid and had brought back a captive, a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Verse 3, then she said to her mistress, if only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy. Now I found this verse to be kind of interesting. Now, if you know what a raid is, usually during that time, what surrounding nations would do, they'll go to each other nation, they'll have a raid. It's like nowadays we have drive-bys or robberies. They would go, get the place, take what they want, and they'll bring back some hostages with them and take it back to their land. Yeah. So this girl was a slave pretty much in this new land that she's unfamiliar with.
Wow.
Can you imagine this girl in this unfamiliar land, but she's saying, you know what? My master got something wrong with him.
Wow.
Making the best out of a bad situation. She's a slave in this land. Even in captivity, this little girl is still witnessing.
Wow.
Can you witness in your situation? Can you still show the light in your situation?
Wow.
Can you be that light the world needs in your situation?
Wow.
So I want to go do a little sidebar because I like, dig into the word a little bit deeper. I'm going to call this a freebie, as they say. I was thinking this little girl who was of Samaria, it brought me back to John chapter 4.
Wow.
That woman at the well.
Yes.
Now, this is me. It's not saying that God gave me this deep revelation. But I'm assuming she could be this descendant of this little girl. This woman was of Samaria, and she said, come see a man. Who knows all my problems. He told me all my problems. This little girl.
Wow.
Is still witnessing. I just threw that out there for you. Y'all, Bishop, they'll catch it when they get home. Okay? Let's continue verse 4. Verse 4, it says, and Naaman went in and told his master, saying, thus and thus said the girl who was from the land of Israel. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that's very important for us nowadays, too. I think verse 4 is very important because what stood out to me is this great man of valor, he won so many battles, he had an issue, there's a solution that was presented to him. Most of us, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and try to go ahead and take care of ourselves. But he understood protocol, he understood hierarchy. Yeah. He went to the king and said, let me get permission to get this taken care of. Yes. And the king granted him permission. Yes. What am I saying? It's very important to get covered wherever you go.
Wow.
It's so important to get covered wherever you go. So many of us say the Lord called me to go here, the Lord called me to do this, the Lord called me to do that. Yeah, you were called, but who sent you?
Wow.
That's good.
Who sent you?
Wow.
I'll give you a great example. Many of you know I'm a saxophonist, play the saxophone, and I was taught whatever you do, get covered. And I don't know, I'll go to my leader and say, hey, I got this going on, and they want me to play here. What do you think? It's not saying I got to get permission to do it. I want to get your blessing. I want to get covered while I'm going out to do this thing.
Amen.
I got a very funny story, though. You can get covered. Make sure you get covered the right way.
Amen.
Before the transition, I had an opportunity to minister somewhere. And they asked me to play and do some other stuff. I went ahead and said, yeah, sure, why not? I was like, uh-oh, I didn't ask first. Let me go. So I went to Bishop Owen and I said, hey, you know, that's and all that other stuff. And she said, let me get back with you. I'm like, okay, she gonna say yeah, because, you know. Man, the next day, I'm not feeling that right now. No. I was like, uh-oh, I gotta fix this thing. So make sure you get covered the right way. I had to go back and say, you know what? Well, make sure you get covered the right way. Okay? It will keep the drama down and keep your name clean and all that. So, like I said, it's very important to get covered. Going to verse 5, then the king of Syria said, go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold,
Wow.
and 10 changes of clothes. Now, I did the math here about how much that would be with, our nowadays currency. 10 talents of silver is about $165,000. 6,000 shekels of gold is about $240,000. 10 changes of clothes, depending, nowadays it might have been like Armani or, Versace. Wherever it was, it would be about $45,000 worth of clothing.
Wow.
So Naaman took about $450,000 worth of stuff with him to this land for a healing.
Wow.
Oh,
You
man.
can't buy a healing.
Wow.
We're going to get there in a minute. We're going to get there.
Yes, sir.
Verse 6, so then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said, now be advised, when this letter comes to you that I have sent Naaman, my servant, to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy. Verse 7, and it happened when the king of Israel read the letter, that he tore his clothes and said, am I God to kill and make alive, that this man send a man to me to heal him of his leprosy? Therefore, please consider and see how he seeks a quarrel with me. The king went off. He went off.
Yes, sir.
What? Because you got to remember, now, these two nations, they were rivals. They would go back and forth, raiding each other. So he thinking this is a setup. So the king went off. Who am I? I can't heal this man with leprosy. And he want to come in my land, and he want to get this from me. I can't do anything for him. But there's a prophet in the house.
Wow.
There's a prophet in the nation of Israel. Amen.
Yes.
So it was, verse 8, when Elisha, the man of God, heard that this king of Israel had torn his clothes, being dramatic, that he sent to the king saying, why have you torn your clothes? Please let him come to me, and he shall know that there's a prophet in Israel.
Wow.
Yes.
So pretty much let me sum up what he was saying. Stop your pity party.
Wow.
Put your robe back on.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Wipe your tears.
Yes.
Do you not remember the same? I'm the same guy who, in chapter 3,
Yes.
there was bitter water and I helped turn it sweet.
Yes.
I'm the guy
Yes.
that helped a widow woman become an entrepreneur because she had owed so many debts to the land. And
Wow.
what I did was I told her to get a little piece of oil and get some jars and go ahead and pay off your debt. I was
All right.
the one who said, you know what, this Shunammite woman, your son has died, but the Lord told me to heal him and he came back to life. I'm king, oh king, wipe your tears.
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Send them to me. Send them to me.
Yes.
That leads us to verse 9. Verse 9, then Naaman went with his horses, his chariots, and his $450,000 worth of stuff, and he stood at the door of Elisha. Now this, verse 10, this will mess some people up. Verse 10, and Elisha sent a messenger to him saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and ye shall be clean. Sir, I traveled all this way.
Yes.
I got $450,000 worth of stuff with me.
Wow.
And you sent a messenger to me? I'm a great man of valor. Who do you think I am? I want you to come to me face to face. Look at his response in verse 11. But Naaman became furious and went away and said, indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy.
Wow.
He went off.
Yes, you did.
He went off. I came all this way, and you're going to send a messenger to me? Who do you think I am? Verse 12. Are not the Abana and the Paphar, the rivers of Damascus, better than the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in rage.
Wow.
See, Naaman did something that I'm guilty of. Some of you may be guilty of that. We all may be guilty of.
Help us.
He assumed.
Yeah.
Man, help us.
His assumption made him go off.
Yeah.
He thought, because I'm this great man of valor and I won all these victories and these battles, that you should come see me face to face, because that's what great men do. We square up sometimes, and if we got an issue, we'll talk it out. Elijah said, I ain't got time for that. Let me just send a word. You can get healed.
Say that.
Send the word so you can get healed. He didn't catch that though, because he was just dealing with his outward appearance. See, the assumption will set you up for disappointment.
Wow.
It's an interesting fact that the Jordan River,
Hey, hallelujah.
this Jordan River was not the cleanest river of them all.
That's right.
In research, you can see that the Jordan River was actually used for irrigation for the crops
Wow.
and also for domestic uses. So any and everything went to the Jordan River.
Wow.
So that's another reason why he went after this. It's a dirty body of water. Are not the other two rivers by Damascus better than this?
Yes.
But that's just like God. He'll tell you to do something crazy, something to do. And then we get in ourselves, this don't sound like God. You said, what? Go on a Wednesday night and speak at this guy's church? What? This is not of God. No. I know you, Savior. I know your voice, but Master, this is not you. But we get in our feelings so much. Like, get out your feelings, man.
Wow.
We get in our feelings so much. I'm
Wow.
talking to me, though. I'm talking to myself.
Help us, minister.
Because we assume.
Yes.
We assume. The assumption would have been, I can go there and blow my horn and, do 2 or 3 songs and sit down. We assume, but God said, no. Do it my way first.
Yes.
It'll be so much easier if we just, set our own agenda aside and let God just give him control and let him do what he has to do. That would be easy, right? You'll think it will be easy, but
Wow.
we just want to do it our way.
Wow.
I'm about to wrap this thing up. In verse 13, it's so important who you surround yourself around with.
Yes, it is.
And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you have not done it? How much more then when he says to you, wash and be clean? Pretty much he was saying, if he told you to jump up there 7 times and go in the cleanest river and declare among the people of Israel that I'm the clean and I'm the healed of the Lord and you get your healing, would you not do it? He was like, yeah. If you would have done this great thing, would you have not done it? So can we point out that verse 13 sheds light on the real issue, what his real butt was. His real butt wasn't that he had leprosy. It was that he had an issue of pride.
Wow. Help us.
So the main problem that it wasn't that this debilitating disease that was affecting his skin. It was about the disease that was in his mind.
Come on.
Wow.
See, James 4, when the Lord took me here, I about threw my laptop. James 4, 6 through 10. But he gives us more grace.
Wow.
Yes.
I'll do that again. But he gives us more grace.
Yes.
Amen.
This is why the scriptures say God opposes the proud, but show favor to the humble. Verse 7, submit yourself then to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Come near to God and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded.
Wow.
Verse 9, grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourself before the Lord,
Yes.
and he will lift you up.
Amen. Thank you.
So, because I'm this great man, I've won all these battles, and I'm being called a man of valor, I have to go down
Wow.
to get my healing. I have to go down to be lifted up.
Down. Wow.
Humble yourself
Humble yourself.
before the Lord, and he will lift you up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Humble yourself
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
before the Lord, and he will lift you up.
Wow.
Close this thing out. Verse 14. So he went down. Somebody say he went down.
He went down.
He went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan,
Yes.
according to the saying of the man of God.
Yes.
And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child.
Wow.
And he was clean. Somebody say he was clean.
He was clean.
So not only his outward appearance was clean, but his pride got taken care of. He had to change his thinking. He had to change his thinking. And because he humbled himself, the Lord picked him up and Jehovah saying, turn them around
Yes, sir.
and place them on that solid ground. Hallelujah.
Help us.
I must humble myself to get my healing. I can't worry about what they saying, what you heard. I gotta humble myself
Yes.
to get my healing. If I look dumb and crazy, if I look like an idiot, I don't care because I'm gonna humble myself
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
to get my healing.
Yes, Lord.
I told you I got this word on Sunday. I went out. It was closing the service. I went to the restroom, came back out, and I heard the Lord say, you must humble yourself to get your healing.
Thank you, Jesus.
I came back and Bishop said, do you trust me?
Wow.
Like, yeah. No. Do you really trust me? He said, I had to do something foolish. He said,
Wow.
get down on your knee. You see the little oil spot right there? That's me.
Yeah.
That's me. That's me right there. He said, Lord told me to pour this whole bottle on you.
Wow.
Ooh,
Oh, glory.
Jesus.
Yes,
Glory,
sir,
glory,
God.
glory,
Amen.
glory, glory. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Thank you, Jesus. Oh, glory.
and as he did,
My God.
Hallelujah.
that's when my healing took place right there.
Wow.
Those past hurts,
Wow.
Thank you.
those questioning gods, those thoughts of, am I really doing what I need to be doing, God? Is this really you? He said, I had to humble you, son.
Ooh, Jesus.
Wow.
Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Wow.
Thank you, Father.
You'll be surprised. So many of us that's walking around in church, we got a false sense of humility.
Wow.
Jesus.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Show you right.
But the Lord said, I'm going to expose that.
Get it over.
Help
Thank
us.
you.
Yes, God. Yes. Yes, God.
Thank you,
Yes.
Jesus.
He said, I'm going to give you a chance to humble yourself. I'm going to give you a chance to go down. But for some people, I got to force you to go down. I got to pull the rug from under you. I got to take your comfort zone away. She come out my seat. But it'll be so much easier if we humble ourselves.
Yes, sir.
My
Yes, sir.
God.
Yes, sir.
So I must go down. I must humble myself to get my healing. So
My
I give
God.
God some praise in this place.
Hallelujah.
Come on, give God some praise.
Yeah. Hallelujah. Jesus. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Lord.
Hallelujah.
Thank you, Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Thank you, Lord.
Hallelujah.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Lord.
Before I take my seat,
Glory.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Jesus.
Oh, glory.
the past few days I couldn't sleep. I had a dream.
Thank you, Jesus.
Pastor Moore.
Hallelujah,
I believe it was
Jesus.
concerning this night.
My God.
Thank you. Hallelujah.
But the Lord said it's not your fault.
Woo.
She called my mouth.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh, God, thank you.
This thing that you're dealing with was generational. And you try to cut one part off, another part grows, and try to cut another part off, another one grows. And the Spirit of the Lord said, you got to get it at the